What is up, my friends? You are very welcome along to this impromptu late night news roundup here on Anfield Agenda. I'm going to take you through some developing stories, some of them coming from Ian Ladyman, who reckons that there are players Arne thinks aren't good enough, players he thinks aren't trying hard enough, and players who he thinks aren't ready. That and a couple of interesting comments from the Premier League CEO that I think will grab your attention will get us through the next 8 to 10 minutes. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know your thoughts on all of these stories and anything else we discuss in this video. Feel free to let me know in the comment section. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video. And of course, I hope to see you back here tomorrow at 9 p.m. for the late night agenda. A reminder, we've only got 5 days to go until we announce the winner of our giveaway of a signed Jurgen Klopp frame shirt. We're giving away completely free with thanks to our friends at the Collector's Corner. We'll be giving away one signed item every month throughout 2026. 5 days left. We'll be announcing the winner at the end of the West Ham watch along this weekend. So if you haven't already signed up, make sure you scan that QR code. That'll bring you to the Anfield Agenda WhatsApp, where you will see the post link in there. Right, let's get straight into this piece from Ian Ladyman. So Anfield Edition have posted a quote from the article, and it is a really, really interesting, it's an interesting, but actually I don't even know if it is an article, maybe it's a quote from an interview we did, but anyway, it is attributed to Ian Ladyman, and he said, Salah was running in sand in the second half, and at times, it must be said, he hardly seemed to be trying. After one particularly half-hearted amble down the right-hand side, Arne Slot decided he'd seen enough and he hauled him off. Now, for all of the things I would have ever been critical of Mo of, a lack of effort has never really been one of them. Maybe on a handful of occasions, but overall, this to me just again paints the picture of everything not being harmonious and great behind the scenes at Liverpool. You know, we've talked about the top 5 sprinters in Premier League this season for Liverpool, and Mohamed Salah doesn't make the top 5. We've talked about other players and their growing influence on their team, and Mohamed Salah is falling away. Even his shot conversion rate is at his lowest time in the Premier League history with Liverpool at just 8%. These are all worrying things, and I can't really disagree with what Ian's had to say about Mohamed Salah in that game, and I don't think any of us were disappointed when he was substituted, other than perhaps thinking it should have been on a little bit earlier. So I want to know your thoughts on this one. Do you think Mohamed Salah put in a lack of effort in the game against Nottingham Forest away? Because certainly Mr. Ladyman there says, from his eyes anyway, he thought, yes, Arne was probably taking him off because of a perceived lack of effort and like he was running in sand. So your thoughts on that, very much welcome. Now, sticking with Ian Ladyman, and we're going to move on to the player that Arne Slot just doesn't believe is good enough. And that player is Federico Chiesa. So Ian Ladyman said Arne Slot doesn't believe that Federico Chiesa is good enough for Liverpool. This is an interesting one because I wanted to see Fede get more game time. I really did. But I've not really been blown away by the game time that he has gotten. So I wonder, over the course of his time at Liverpool, if Arne is correct about this. But that being said, let's just take for granted and give him the benefit of the doubt and say, right, Arne is right about it and Chiesa isn't good enough. Why is he still at the club? That's the part that I can't get my head around. Because we've seen he's taken up a place on the bench. We've seen that he's getting paid about 6 or 7 million quid a year. Why are the club persisting with a player that the head coach doesn't think is good enough? Particularly when we're limited in our forward options anyway. You know, Isak's been out for most of the season, or a huge chunk of it with injury or a lack of fitness. Ekitike's done really well since he's come in. Young Rio hasn't been given minutes because the manager, again, we'll move on to talk about him in a second, doesn't think he's ready for regular first-team football. So limiting the options we have in attack just seems like we're shooting ourselves in the foot. I'm not against the idea of Chiesa not being good enough, but I am against it taking this long for the club to figure it out or not act on it. You know, we've seen many, many pieces in the summer talking about the fact Chiesa may well depart Liverpool and that he missed out on the pre-season tour because he was looking for a club. How come he's still here? Why are we, again, shooting ourselves in the foot and the manager looking to the bench, the players that he doesn't actually believe can come on and make a difference? It's not supportive of the manager, or it's not supportive of the ecosystem of the club being a sustainable model, which is one that we hear so much about. So, also, Ian Ladyman, Arne Slot doesn't really think that Rio Ngamoa is quite ready for regular football. I understand where Arne comes from on this one, because in one sense, I don't think Rio's ready to play 45 games a season for Liverpool across all competitions, but Is he ready for more opportunities from the bench? Yes. Is he ready for a start in the Premier League? I have to say, based off what we've seen from our wide players, particularly recently, 100% he is. He causes problems, and as many journalists have gone out of their way to write this weekend, he gives Liverpool something different, something that the other two wingers didn't give us against Nottingham Forest, and he puts fear into opposing defenders and can run at them directly, do things that we're not seeing enough of. So I would say Liverpool fans in the whole will be very disappointed if we don't see Ryan Gamo's name on the starting 11 this weekend for the game against West Ham. Now, Who Scored have said that Dominic Szoboszlai has the highest average rating at right back in the Premier League this season for players who have made at least 7 appearances. And he tops the chart ahead of Reece James, Matheus Nunes, Jurrien Timber. But Dominic Szoboszlai, ladies and gentlemen, the best right back in the Premier League. And the dude's not even a right back. And actually, we looked into this a bit more. He has played most of his minutes. Well, in one position or one area of the pitch, most of his minutes have come at right back this season. Over 800 minutes played at right back. So there you go. Best right back in the league, and he's not even a right back. This only adds, by the way, to the calls to compare with Steven Gerrard for me, because that's something I've seen Stevie G do. Go in and play at right back when needed and do it well. Just speaks to the calibre and the class of Dominic Szoboszlai. So to finish up tonight, there was a post that caught our attention earlier on from an account called Toastspur, and it was about the Premier League CEO making a statement that I actually had to watch the video to make sure that he did make this statement, and indeed he did. The statement was, we have a strategic plan at the Premier League to put a new name on the trophy every 6 years. Now, this person said Premier League corrupt AF, shall we say. And well, I don't think it's corrupt. I also don't understand the idea of coming out and saying that publicly. Like, he did go on to say that obviously we don't want to stop anybody from winning the Premier League, and I certainly don't think he's trying to say that, you know, if one club wins it 6 years in a row, we'll find a way. But it's a weird thing to hear him say. Like, yes, make the league competitive, and I understand the theory of not wanting a team to just dominate for years on end, but also, it's a very weird particular thing to say, isn't it? We have a strategic plan at the Premier League to put a new name on the trophy every 6 years. Your thoughts on that, ladies and gentlemen, will be very much welcome, because for me, it's a bit of a tone-deaf thing to hear him say. So that is pretty much where we're at for tonight. But as always, we've got lots of stuff coming up for you this week. Myself, Connor and Chris will be together on Saturday after the game to record the Anfield Agenda podcast. We'll have a video in the morning with Connor at about 10 a.m. I'll be here at about 4:30 with the news roundup for the evening. And then, of course, we'll have a late night agenda tomorrow night at about 9 p.m. Starting a little bit later because the Champions League game's on. So until then, my friends, feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments, particularly around what we started the video with. Those comments around Mohamed Salah not really trying, Rio Ngamo not being ready for first team football, and Federico Chiesa not being good enough. Your thoughts on those and everything else we discussed, very much welcome. Appreciate your time as always. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.